They say a mother's love is unconditional. I used to believe that. I believed it right up until the moment my mother looked me in the eye and told me I was dead to her. Not because I committed a crime, not because I hurt anyone, but because I chose to love a man whose skin didn't match hers. 5 years of silence followed. 5 years of building a life from the ashes. Then, out of nowhere, my father appeared on my doorstep with a list of demands that turned my world upside down. The rain was drumming against the window of our small apartment, a rhythmic sound that usually brought me peace. But that day, the air felt heavy. I sat at the kitchen table, clutching a cold mug of tea, staring at a photograph I hadn't looked at in years. It was a picture of me, Lily Rose, standing between my parents at my college graduation. We looked like the perfect family, the golden daughter and her proud protectors. I didn't know then that the gold was just a thin plating over something much darker. Everything changed when I met Marcus. He wasn't just a man I fell for. He was the person who finally made me feel seen. He was kind, brilliant, and happened to be black. To me, it was simple. To my mother, it was an act of war. I remember the night I brought him home for dinner. The silence at the table wasn't just awkward. It was sharp. It cut through every attempt at conversation. After Marcus left, the explosion happened. My mother didn't scream. She didn't throw things. She just stood there, her face a mask of cold fury, and told me that if I walked out that door to be with him, I should never bother coming back. She called it preserving our legacy. I called it hate. I chose Marcus. The first year was the hardest. The silence for my family was a physical weight. No birthday calls, no Merry Christmas texts. It was as if Lily Rose had ceased to exist the moment I followed my heart. Marcus held me through the nights when I sobbed into my pillow, wondering how people who raised me could discard me so easily. We built our own world. We got married in a small courthouse ceremony. No white dress, no flower girls. Just two people promising to be each other's home. We worked hard. I started a small design business, and Marcus climbed the ladder in his architectural firm. We were happy, truly, deeply happy. But then, the 5-year mark hit. I was in the middle of preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. It wasn't the mailman, and we weren't expecting friends. When I opened the door, my heart didn't just drop, it stopped. Standing there, looking older, frailer, but still wearing that same suit of stoic authority, was my father. He didn't hug me, he didn't ask how I was, he didn't even acknowledge the beautiful home I had built. He simply stepped inside, looked around with a judgmental squint, and said, "Lily Rose, we need to talk. Your mother is in trouble, and you're the only one who can fix it." I felt a surge of bitterness rise in my throat. After 5 years of treating me like a ghost, he wanted a favor. But before I could kick him out, he pulled a folder from his briefcase. "She doesn't know I'm here," he whispered, his voice losing some of its edge. "But the family estate is being liquidated. And because of the way your grandfather's will was written, the only way to save the house and your mother's reputation is for you to sign over your inheritance rights immediately." I looked at the documents. It wasn't just a request. It was a demand for me to sign away the only thing I had left of my family's history, to save the woman who had disowned me for loving my husband. But as I flipped through the papers, I saw something my father didn't realize I'd notice. A signature line that wasn't for me. It was for someone else. The air in the room felt thin. I looked from the legal documents to my father's face, searching for a glimmer of the man who used to tuck me in at night. Instead, I saw a stranger, someone desperate, graying at the temples, and clearly cornered. "You're asking me to sign away my legal rights to the estate," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "To save a woman who hasn't spoken a word to me in half a decade? A woman who told me I was dead to her?" My father sighed, sitting on the edge of my sofa, as if he were afraid to get too comfortable. "Lily Rose, let's not be dramatic. Traditional. She was hurt, but this isn't about feelings. It's about survival. The taxes on the estate have piled up. If you don't sign these papers, the house goes to the state by the end of the month. Everything your ancestors built will be gone." I looked back at the folder. My eyes caught that extra signature line again. It wasn't just a space for a witness. It was a secondary beneficiary clause. If I signed my rights away, the control of the entire property wouldn't just stay with my mother. It would transfer to a third party, a cousin of mine, a man named Julian, who had always been my mother's favorite pure member of the family. "Who is Julian to you now, Dad?" I asked, pointing to the line. "Why is his name on here? If this is about saving Mom, why is she giving the power to him?" My father's eyes shifted. He couldn't look me in the eye. "He's been helping her. He's been the son the child she could rely on while you were gone." The sting of that sentence was like a physical slap. I had been gone because I was pushed. I had been absent because I was banned. "I'm not signing anything today," I said, closing the folder firmly. "Lily, you don't understand the urgency." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "You waited 5 years to knock on this door. You can wait 24 hours for an answer. Now please leave. My husband will be home soon, and I don't think you're ready to meet the man you traded your daughter for." After he left, I sat in the silence of my living room for a long time. When Marcus came home, I showed him the papers. I expected him to be angry, to tell me to burn them and never look back. But Marcus, with his infinite patience, just traced the lines of the contract with his thumb. "Lily," he said softly, "this isn't just about a house. Look at the fine print on page 12. Hidden under a mountain of legalese was a small paragraph regarding the family trust. It stated that if the primary heir, me, signed a voluntary renunciation, the trust would not only transfer the property, but would also release a massive cash sum to the new controller. My mother wasn't just trying to save the house. She was trying to strip me of a multi-million-dollar trust fund I didn't even know existed, and she was using my father to do the dirty work. But there was a catch. To make the renunciation valid, I had to sign it in the presence of the primary trustee. And the primary trustee wasn't my father. It was my grandmother's old lawyer, a man who had always treated me like his own granddaughter. The next morning, I didn't call my father. I didn't call my mother. I drove straight to the old ivy-covered office downtown. It was time to find out exactly what my legacy was worth, and why my mother was so terrified of me keeping it. When I walked into the lawyer's office, he didn't look surprised. He looked relieved. "Lily Rose," he said, standing up, "I've been waiting for you to realize your mother has no power over you. But you should know, she's not just coming for the money, she's coming for your peace." He pulled out a second folder. This one wasn't from my father. It was a copy of a private investigation report. My mother hadn't just been ignoring me for 5 years. She had been watching me, and she knew a secret about my life that I hadn't even told Marcus yet. The lawyer's office felt colder than the air outside. I stared at the private investigation report sitting on the mahogany desk. My name was on the cover, but inside was a version of my life I didn't recognize. Grainy photos of me at the grocery store, Marcus at his office, and even photos of our weekend trips to the coast. "She's been stalking us," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Monitoring is the word she'd use," the lawyer said, his eyes full of pity. "But Lily, look at the last page. This is why your father showed up yesterday. This is why the urgency has suddenly peaked." I turned to the final page. It wasn't a photo. It was a medical record, a copy of a lab result from 3 weeks ago. My heart stopped. It was my positive pregnancy test. I hadn't even told Marcus. I was waiting for our anniversary dinner tonight to give him the news. I wanted it to be perfect. But my mother, the woman who had wiped me from her life, knew about the life growing inside me before my own husband did. The trust, I realized, the pieces finally clicking together. My grandmother's will wasn't just about me. "Exactly," the lawyer nodded. "Your grandmother was a sharp woman. She knew your mother's temperament. The trust dictates that the bulk of the family fortune remains locked until there is a third-generation heir. The moment you became pregnant, that money became accessible, but only to you. If you sign those papers your father brought, you aren't just giving up a house. You are giving up the financial future of your unborn child and handing it directly to Julian." I felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't a family dispute. This was a heist. My mother didn't want the house. She wanted the millions that my pregnancy had just unlocked. She was willing to use my father to trick me into poverty, just to ensure that her legacy didn't pass to a child she deemed unworthy because of Marcus. "What do I do?" I asked. "You have 2 choices," the lawyer said. "You sign, you walk away, and you never deal with them again. Or you show up at the estate tonight. There's a board meeting for the family foundation. Your mother, your father, and Julian will all be there. You walk in, you show them you know the truth, and you claim what is yours. I left the office in a daze. I drove home, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When I walked through the door, Marcus was already there, setting the table with candles and flowers. He looked so happy, so untainted by the venom of my biological family. "Lily, you look like you've seen a ghost," he said, coming over to take my bag. "I've seen something worse than a ghost, Marcus," I said, looking him in the eyes. "I've seen the truth." I told him everything. I told him about the trust, the stalking, the pregnancy, and the trap my father had tried to set. I expected him to be terrified, but Marcus just grew quiet. His jaw set, a look of fierce protection crossing his face. "They want to fight?" Marcus asked quietly. "Then let's give them one, but we do it on our terms." That evening I didn't put on the maternity clothes I had secretly bought. I put on my sharpest power suit. I did my hair and makeup until I looked like the golden daughter they remembered, but with a fire in my eyes they had never seen. We drove to the family estate, the massive cold mansion on the hill. As we pulled up the long driveway, I saw the lights blazing in the dining hall. They were celebrating, probably celebrating the fact that they thought I was a fool who would sign my life away for a bit of guilt-tripping from my father. Marcus squeezed my hand. "I'll be right behind you." "No," I said, taking a deep breath. "I need you right beside me. We walk in together." I pushed open the heavy oak doors without knocking. The clinking of silverware stopped instantly. My mother sat at the head of the table, draped in pearls, with Julian to her right and my father looking like a ghost to her left. My mother didn't even stand up. She just raised a glass of wine. "Lily Rose, I assume you brought the signed papers. It's about time you did something right for this family." I walked right up to her, pulled the unsigned documents from my bag, and ripped them in half. The sound of the tearing paper echoed through the hall like a gunshot. "I'm not here to save the house, Mother," I said, my voice echoing. "I'm here to take the keys." The silence that followed was suffocating. My mother's glass paused mid-air, her eyes narrowing into slits of pure ice. Julian, who had been smugly leaning back, suddenly sat upright, his face reddening. "Lily Rose," my mother hissed, finally standing. "How dare you enter this house with him and act with such disrespect? You are a guest here only by my mercy." "Actually, Mother," I said, leaning over the table, "mercy has nothing to do with it. I spoke with the estate lawyer today. I know about the trust, I know about the pregnancy clause, and I know that the moment I conceived, the legal ownership of this entire grounds, including the chair you're sitting in, shifted to me as the primary heir." My father gasped, dropping his fork. My mother's face went from pale to a ghastly shade of gray. She turned her glare toward my father. "You told her? You weak, pathetic man, you told her?" "He didn't have to," I countered. "You made the mistake of thinking I was still the scared girl who would do anything for your approval. But I don't need the approval of a woman who hires strangers to follow me to the doctor. I don't need the love of someone who values legacy over her own grandchild." Julian stood up then, trying to look intimidating. "Now look here, Lily. You've been gone. You don't know how things work. That money is for the family, not for some outsider's child." Marcus stepped forward then. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "That child is a Rose," Marcus said firmly. "And unlike you, Julian, this child will grow up knowing that a name is earned through character, not stolen through legal loopholes." I looked at my mother one last time. The woman who had raised me was gone. In her place was a bitter stranger clinging to a crumbling empire. "I'm not signing the renunciation," I said, my voice cold and final. "In fact, I'm doing the opposite. I'm exercising my right as the trustee. You have 30 days to vacate the estate. I'm turning this legacy into a foundation for families who have been cast out by their own. We're calling it Lily's Hope." My mother collapsed back into her chair, the pearls around her neck looking like a noose. My father reached out a hand toward me, his eyes pleading, but I took Marcus's hand instead. We turned our backs on the ghosts of my past and walked out of those heavy oak doors for the last time. The air outside was crisp and clean. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel like a daughter in exile. I felt like a mother, a wife, and a woman who had finally claimed her own story. As we drove away, the lights of the mansion faded in the rearview mirror. I placed my hand on my stomach and smiled at Marcus. Our life was just beginning, and this time it was built on a foundation that no amount of hate could ever shake. Where are you all watching this video from, and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments below. End question. Would you have forgiven your parents if they came back only when money was involved? If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to LilyCalmStories for more deep, realistic tales of life and love.